Rachel Parker stood stiffly in the marble hotel lobby, her tailored navy suit suddenly feeling like borrowed armor. Her father's voice rang out across the room like broken glass. "Get this beggar out," he said, loud enough for every chandelier to vibrate with the humiliation. A security guard hovered at her side, his hand uncertain, caught between duty and pity. Her mother's eyes darted away, refusing to meet her gaze, while her sister Victoria smirked, lips curved in that cruel shape Rachel had seen since childhood, the one that always whispered, "You lost again." Rachel didn't shout or argue. She simply straightened her back and nodded at the guard. "I'll walk out myself," she said, her voice calm even as her skin burned with humiliation. Guests in glittering gowns and polished tuxedos stared as she moved toward the exit, whispering behind their champagne flutes. She carried herself with dignity, each step measured, though her heart thudded in her ears. In her mind, a plan was already forming. Betrayal was nothing new. What her family had never understood was that she wasn't just their scapegoat. She was also their financier. For years, Rachel had been the invisible bank behind their lifestyle. Every crisis, emergency home repairs, surprise medical bills, luxury vacations, had been quietly handled with her money. They had always promised it was an investment in family. Tonight, standing outside the ballroom where they toasted without her, Rachel allowed herself a private smile. The celebration they thought her father had funded was hers from top to bottom. The venue was booked under her LLC. The gourmet catering her mother demanded came from her business account. Even Victoria's Maldives honeymoon tickets had been purchased with her corporate card. They had built this illusion of wealth on her back. Rachel walked steadily through the hotel's underground garage, the click of her heels echoing off the concrete walls. She reached her car on level B, her hands trembling only after the door closed behind her. She opened her banking app and line by line, she reversed every payment she had made. $7, $200, banquet catering, canceled. $12,000, honeymoon flights voided. $4,800, mom's spa trip, gone. $52,000, beach condo payments, terminated, she murmured aloud as her fingers tapped across the screen. Each transaction felt like pulling a thread from a tapestry, watching the fabric of their false image unravel in real time. By the time she pulled into her driveway 20 minutes later, her phone buzzed with frantic calls. First her mother, then her father, then Victoria. Unknown numbers flooded in too, likely vendors and relatives left stranded by sudden cancellations. A heavy pounding rattled her front door, making her heart leap. She peeked through the peephole and saw Jared, Victoria's husband. His shirt was half untucked, face flushed crimson with anger. Rachel slid the deadbolt into place and leaned against the door. Jared's voice thundered. "You need to fix this right now. They just canceled our food, the hotel won't release the rooms, and our honeymoon flights vanished while we were checking in." Rachel's lips curved into the faintest smile. She let him finish his tirade before answering calmly, "Strange. Sounds like someone didn't bother to verify who actually owned those payments." Jared blinked rapidly, confused. "You did this because they kicked you out?" Rachel shook her head though he couldn't see. "No. I did this because they forgot the most important rule. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Especially when that hand holds all the receipts." Silence followed, broken only by Jared muttering under his breath. He tried to peer through the window beside her door, but Rachel stayed still, the folder she'd prepared years ago resting firmly in her grip. She tapped the folder against her palm. Inside were signed contracts, color-coded tabs, and cancellation clauses, all bearing her name as sole authority. Jared's voice grew quieter when he saw her through the glass. "You're punishing the entire family," he hissed. Rachel tilted her head. "No. I'm protecting my investment and cutting my losses." He pressed harder. "They're your parents." Her reply was ice cold. "They called me a beggar in front of 40 people. Do you expect me to fund their insult too?" His mouth opened, but no words came. At last, Jared turned on his heel, muttering about lawyers. Rachel watched him retreat without flinching. When the door clicked shut behind his departure, Rachel carried the folder into her office. She placed it neatly on her desk and pulled out another, labeled contingency. It had been waiting for 3 years, built in anticipation of this exact betrayal. As her phone buzzed relentlessly in the background, Rachel opened her laptop. She drafted polite yet firm cancellation notices, forwarding proof of ownership where required. Every dollar that had been used against her now snapped back into her control. It wasn't revenge, she thought. It was balance. And finally, for the first time in decades, she was ready to collect. By morning, Rachel's inbox overflowed. 32 new messages waited, some begging, some threatening. Her mother's subject line read, "We didn't mean what we said. Can we talk?" Her father sent nothing personal, just a forwarded invoice from the venue demanding immediate payment. The family group chat, one she had been excluded from for years, lit up with comments. A cousin sent her a screenshot. "Rachel's always been sensitive. She'll come crawling back. She always does." Rachel laughed aloud in her empty kitchen. She typed a single reply addressed to all. "Just a reminder, I own the crawl space. And I've changed the locks." That afternoon, an unexpected email arrived. It was from Franklin, her parents' longtime accountant. "Rachel," it began, "I need to discuss certain irregularities I've noticed regarding your parents' filings." Curious, she scheduled a call. Franklin cleared his throat nervously over the phone. "The payments for their beach condo, they don't appear to come from their trust as they claimed. They're routed through an LLC I can't identify." Rachel's lips curled. "That would be mine," she said simply. Silence stretched on the line. Franklin finally admitted. They claimed the condo was an inheritance gift from a private investor. No documentation provided. Fraud. Rachel's tone hardened. "So, they used my generosity to build equity in a property I still own under my company's name?" Franklin coughed softly. "That is correct." Rachel leaned back in her chair. "Then I'll need you to prepare a statement for tax records confirming that fact." She ended the call, dialed her lawyer Tiffany, and asked one question. "How quickly can we serve them papers?" Tiffany's reply was calm, efficient. 48 hours tops. Rachel nodded. Perfect. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about fraud. The next day, Rachel sat across from Tiffany in her downtown office, sleek glass windows reflecting the city skyline. Tiffany slid a neat stack of papers across the desk. Cease and desist. Misrepresentation. Unauthorized use of funds. Property reassignment filings. Rachel scanned the documents, each word a weapon. Tiffany's eyes narrowed. "They'll try to call your bluff." Rachel smiled faintly. "They already did. That banquet was their bluff. This is my reality." An hour later, a process server confirmed delivery. Just like that, the family's grand celebration collapsed into a financial reckoning. That evening, Rachel replayed a voicemail from her mother. Tearful, rambling, accusatory. "You're destroying us over what? A misunderstanding. You always do this, always so dramatic. If you go through with this, people will talk. Church, the neighbors, your father's reputation." Rachel let the words echo in her living room. "Dramatic," she whispered. That word had been their favorite leash, used to silence her whenever she dared to resist. Not this time. She deleted the message without replying. Their obsession with appearances no longer bound her. Her loyalty had expired. The following morning, a new email arrived from her accountant. Subject: account transfer confirmed. Beach condo title finalized. Rachel exhaled in relief. It was legally done. Irrevocable. The prized property her parents flaunted as their retirement jewel now belonged to her outright. Within hours, Tiffany followed up with another suggestion. "We've closed every door. Want to take it one step further? A full audit of the family trust." Rachel typed back immediately, "Yes. Start with 2017. I want every dollar traced." Her patience had ended. It was time for exposure. The audit uncovered rot beneath polished veneers. Rachel sat stunned as Tiffany presented the records. $18,700, labeled emergency home repairs, actually went to Victoria's kitchen renovation. $9,000 for education expenses, concert tickets, and spa weekends. $34,000 for your father's vintage Mustang restoration. Rachel's hand tightened into a fist. That car had once been paraded as a family reward. They drained it dry, she said flatly. Tiffany gave a measured nod. If we pursue this, it can become criminal. Rachel shook her head. I don't want them jailed. I want them accountable. Together, they filed a motion, financial recompense and trust misuse documentation. The family had 30 days to respond. Silence followed for a week. Then a text from her mother finally broke it. I'm scared, Rachel. Please don't ruin the family over money. We'll make it right. Rachel stared at the screen. Still no apology. Still no admission. Just fear. The only language they truly understood. She typed back one line. You confuse ruin with reveal. Her thumb pressed send. For the first time, she felt lighter. Victoria struck next, not with sincerity, but with social media. A filtered sunset photo appeared on Instagram, captioned, Some people only show up when there's money involved. Grateful, I now know who my real family is. Rachel read it, lips twitching into a sardonic smile. She didn't respond. What was the point? They could posture online all they liked. In court, filters didn't matter. Proof did. And Rachel had every receipt they thought she'd never keep. On day 22, their lawyer reached out. His email was filled with legal jargon, but desperation dripped between the lines. He proposed a private settlement, $50,000 in restitution, no admission of wrongdoing, and a strict non-disclosure agreement. Tiffany laughed aloud when she read it. They're trying to plaster cracks before the neighbors peek in. Rachel shook her head. I don't want their money. I want a record. A trail they can't erase. They declined the offer. Silence returned. Day 25 brought a surprise visitor. Her father appeared at Rachel's office, the very business he once dismissed as her little side project. The lobby staff buzzed her nervously, but Rachel allowed him in. He stood in the doorway, hat literally in hand. Pride stripped bare. You've made your point, he muttered. But you're about to ruin us. Are you proud of that? Rachel met his gaze calmly. No. I'm not proud. I'm tired. Tired of funding your life while being erased from your legacy. He placed a folded check on her desk, blank and signed. Rachel pushed it back. This was never about your money. It was about mine. When he left, Rachel opened her email. A message blinked on screen from the court system. Trust disbursement fraud. Preliminary hearing scheduled. The date was set 3 weeks later. Word spread through the family like water leaking from a cracked pipe. Quiet at first, then uncontrollable. Cousins whispered, relatives texted, group chats erupted. Many didn't believe she'd go through with it. But they never had believed in her resolve before. They expected silence. They expected shame. But the days leading to the hearing moved with a strange calm. Rachel and Tiffany met every evening, going over timelines, statements, and proof. They printed screenshots of family texts where Rachel had been asked to spot them just this once. They assembled account records showing deposits and withdrawals disguised as emergencies. We're not just showing numbers, Tiffany reminded her. We're showing a pattern. On the night before court, Rachel received a final message from Victoria. If you go through with this, I swear I'll never forgive you. Rachel placed her phone face down. Forgiveness was never the point, she whispered to herself. The courtroom smelled of paper and polished wood when Rachel walked in. She wore a simple gray suit, her hair pinned neatly back. Across the aisle, her parents sat stiffly, their lawyer whispering into their ears. Victoria glared at her, arms folded tightly. The judge began with simple questions, asking Rachel to confirm her LLC's payments. Tiffany presented spreadsheets projected onto a large screen. Each chart glowed with numbers, catering bills, condo payments, flight bookings, all tied directly to Rachel's accounts. Murmurs rippled through the small audience. For once, Rachel wasn't invisible. She was undeniable. Her parents' lawyer tried to object. These were informal family arrangements, he argued. Misunderstandings blown out of proportion. The judge adjusted her glasses. Informal arrangements don't explain tax filings with fabricated inheritance claims. Tiffany remained calm, presenting emails from Franklin the accountant. Here's confirmation the condo was falsely declared. Here's the trust withdrawals labeled for repairs but used for leisure. The judge turned to Rachel. What outcome are you seeking, Miss Parker? Rachel stood, her voice steady. Truth on paper. Let the record match reality. The judge nodded, tapping her pen. Granted. Silence followed the ruling, heavier than any insult Rachel had ever endured. Her parents avoided her eyes as the judgment was read aloud. Restitution of funds back into the trust. Condo title transferred permanently to Rachel's name. Removal of her parents' financial access to assets they had misused. No arrests, no tabloids, just quiet, binding truth. Tiffany leaned over, whispering, "Elegant justice." Rachel exhaled. For the first time in years, she felt balance. Not triumph, not vengeance, just balance. After the hearing, Rachel walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sun. Reporters weren't waiting. No neighbors stood whispering. Just quiet streets, and the sound of her own heels against stone steps. Her parents left through a side door, their lawyer trailing them, heads bowed in silence. Victoria didn't speak either. She only brushed past Rachel, her perfume sharp and cloying. For once, there were no parting words, no shouted accusations. Just the sound of a door slamming behind them. Weeks passed. Rachel's phone remained silent. No requests for money, no guilt-soaked calls, no late-night emergencies disguised as family crises. She relished the stillness. Then, one morning, an envelope slid beneath her apartment door. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed the family banquet, everyone in silver and navy, glasses raised beneath glittering chandeliers. Blurry in the background was Rachel herself, caught mid-turn, mid-exit. On the back, written in slanted script she knew too well, this was the moment it all fell apart. Victoria's handwriting. Rachel stared at the photo for a long while, her thumb brushing the edges. Then she fed it into the shredder, watching the illusion dissolve into strips. What fell apart wasn't family, she murmured. It was the performance of it. She opened a fresh folder on her desk and typed a new heading. Parker Foundation. A grant program for first-generation women who put themselves through school without family support. She smiled as she typed the opening line of her proposal. The initial funding would come from the sale of the condo. The one that was hers legally and finally. 6 months later, the Parker Foundation launched quietly but powerfully. Rachel stood in a small university auditorium, handing the first scholarship envelope to a young woman with trembling hands. "You earned this," Rachel told her, voice soft but strong. The applause that followed was real, unforced, nothing like the staged toasts of her family's banquets. For the first time, Rachel saw her money create something lasting, opportunity, not obligation. She left the ceremony with a full heart, her phone blissfully still. Her parents never contacted her directly again. Victoria's social media carried on, filled with polished smiles and thin captions, but Rachel stopped looking. Sometimes, she told Tiffany over coffee, the healthiest family resolution is distance. Tiffany nodded. Distance can be love too. Love for yourself. Rachel held her mug, warmth seeping into her palms. The ache of betrayal had dulled, replaced by something steadier. Peace. Not the fragile kind her family had demanded, but the unshakable kind she had built herself. One evening, Rachel stood at her window, watching city lights flicker against the night sky. She thought of the hotel lobby, the words that had once cut like glass, "Get this beggar out."